What is going on, guys? Nathan here with another Magic the Gathering video. In this video, I wanted to go over my white-black Orzahav Life Gain Commander deck. And in all honesty, I would say that this deck is a little bit more gimmicky than it'll actually be useful in winning, mostly because the very mechanic of life gain in Magic leads you to be, well, you're going to be throning, which means that you have the most life total. And typically in Commander, people tend to focus the person who is throning. So like if you're always throning, you're always going to be focused by your friends or whoever you're playing with. So it's a little bit gimmicky that way. Otherwise, the deck is really fun to see how big you can make your life total. In fact, I think I actually used this in a 5-player Commander match just a couple of days ago, and I got up to, I think, 218 life, I want to say, and just in a 1v1 before, I've gotten to about 300, just with the right combination of cards. So, I mean, you get to ridiculous levels like that, and there is a little bit of defense included in the deck to sort of prevent people from attacking you, but it's not a very solid defense, and people will definitely, if they choose to focus you, you will get focused and probably not be doing very well. But if you manage to survive long enough with a very high life total, and you're just taking shots from everybody because they keep focusing you because you have such a high life total, if you manage to survive that far and you happen to draw, I think 2 of the cards in the deck have win conditions in terms of your life total. So if you happen to play those, I think it's like during the beginning of your next upkeep. If you can survive for one more turn when you play those cards, then you will end up winning the game just because you have a high life total. But otherwise, the best way to play the deck in terms of the board politics is to remain pretty quiet. Don't remind people that you are throning and have the highest life total, and you can see where that gets you. But as always, I'm going to start off with the price of the deck. Now, this is another aspect that it makes the deck a little bit more gimmicky than actually, you know, you'd play in real life, because it is $170. Now, for some people, that's, you know, that's your average EDH deck cost, that they'll just buy those cards, but this is definitely a candidate that I just proxied this deck completely, because paying $170 for these cards is not, I mean, it's just not something that I would do. There are cards that you can kind of substitute here and there to make the deck cheaper, but $170 for one deck is quite a lot, and getting that cost down, you'd need to remove a lot of the personality of the deck, I think, to get it down to an affordable level around the 70-ish, 80-ish dollar mark. So so anyway, pretty expensive. I mean, compared to like standard decks, you know, some of the mainstream standard decks are freaking so expensive. They're like $300, and that's just ridiculous. But even for your just casual Commander play, $170 is pretty expensive. So anyway, we're going to take a look at this super sexy curve. Look at that perfect mana curve right there. That is absolutely awesome. That is your pretty much your like perfect mana curve. I have no idea how else to say that, but it's got a nice bell curve there, and it's maxing out at 6, and that is going to obviously be higher because we are playing Commander, where you're going to get the opportunity to place more lands, more turns are taken, so all of that fun stuff. And we'll get into some of the deck here. So I'm going to start off with a 40 land base, pretty standard. This is actually a white, blue, black deck technically, but I would still classify it as just an Orzahav deck because all of these cards are white and black. The only thing that has a blue in it is the Commander, and the Commander is mostly just to fit the theme of the deck at this point. Olero Ageless Aesthetic is a 6-cost 4/5, and you basically get 2 life on each one of your turns, and if you happen to be playing him, you can actually pay mana whenever you gain life to draw a card, and each opponent loses 1 life, each opponent loses 1 life, whatever. What he's more, therefore is the card draw. I actually haven't found a reason to play him yet, to be honest, but just because I feel that he's so valuable in that even if he's in the command zone where he's completely untargetable, you still get that 2 life, which is pretty awesome. But if you really need to refill your hand for some reason, which probably actually won't happen just because everything has such a high mana cost, then you'll pretty much, you just won't really, that won't really be needed that much. Alright, so like I was saying, 40 land base. These are mostly just really slow tap lands, just because I'm not the person to really go into the super expensive lands. There's just no reason to. If you're gonna proxy this deck, you might as well do your friends the service of at least having like bad lands, because that's just ridiculous. But so just a 40 land base. The symbols do actually work out so that you have for example, Vivid Marsh, Vivid Meadow, Transgo Promenade. These are all designed so that you have a decent chance of being able to cast that blue mana to cast your commander if you need to cast him. Otherwise, they also work well as just dual lands or whatever. If you want to cast, white mana on your Vivid Marsh, then that's fine too. Alright, so we'll start off with the most uninteresting portion of the deck, which is the creatures. The creatures are, well, okay, I'll just go through them. They don't really share a common theme. They're mostly good stuff creatures, although there are a few lifelink creatures included to fit the theme of the deck. So, a Darker Valkyrie, complete good stuff creature, 6 cost, 4/5, fly and vigilance. You can tap it, and when target creature other than it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So that's definitely just really good all around. Angelic Skirmisher, 6 cost 4/4. At the beginning of combat, choose First Strike, Vigilance, or Lifelink, and you can choose Lifelink to fit the theme of the deck. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn. That's great, so you can gain a bunch of life. Archangel of Thune, probably the best creature in the deck, because she's a 5 cost 3/4 flyer with Lifelink. But whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Now, you're going to be gaining a lot of life, hence obviously the lifelink deck. In combination with Olero, even in the command zone, Archangel of Thune will actually make your creatures pretty powerful if you happen to have a couple on the board when she's out there. So she's definitely just an amazing creature. But she's like one of the cards that is super expensive in this deck, like an average of $15. So she would be one that you could remove if you wanted to make the deck actually like cheaper to actually physically buy the card, so it's just not as expensive. You could find her substitute, but I mean, she's just so good. I wanted to include her for at least this example. Archon of Justice is a 5 cost 4/4 flyer. When it dies, exile target permanent. This is not only useful in how it will basically just get rid of anything, so you can get rid of anything on the board, but it makes it so that your opponents are a little bit less likely to attack you, because if you sack your Archon of Justice into their whatever massive creature, then you can target anything on their board, and if it doesn't have hexproof, it is game to be removed from this card. So it's one of those the cards that's just a little bit, it might make your opponent second guess about attacking you because maybe they don't want to lose their super ultra powerful like artifact or whatever, or I don't know if they have like an Akroma's Memorial or something. So just a good little defensive creature, but also good value too. Aetheria's God of Passage is a 3 cost 5/4. I mean, most people know what he does, but I'll just explain it anyway. Whenever another creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life. So that fits a little bit more of the theme of the deck in sort of life total manipulation. Otherwise, it's nice to, if nobody wants to pay the 3 life, which most people will, so it's kind of just free damage whenever another creature dies, or you control dies. Otherwise, it's good to just bounce stuff back to your hand, refill your hand if nobody happens to want to pay the 3 life. But pretty much just a good value card. Otherwise, I like how you can keep your devotion up because there do happen to be a lot of enchantments here. So these all add to your devotion, so you get basically like a 5/4 indestructible if you do happen to have that devotion. So that's also very nice. Blood Baron of Vizkopa, I believe this is another pretty expensive card that you could... Oh, no, never mind. It's a $2 card. Okay. So, Blood Baron of Vizkopa, 5 cost 4/4. It has lifelink, protection from white and from black as long as you have 30 or more life, and an opponent has 10 or less life, the card has +6/+6 and has flying. Now, you're probably going to have more than 30 life at any given point. It's just a matter of an opponent having 10 or less life, which is a little bit more rare, but otherwise it's just a good, nice 4/4 lifelink for 5. And if you happen to proc his second ability, that's, just better value even more. Karen Wanderer, 5 cost 4/4. It is a changeling, and as long as a creature card with flying is in the graveyard, it has that ability. Same for like all other abilities. So this is especially useful because you're probably going to have some sort of lifelink creature in your graveyard, so he's going to be minimum of 4/4 lifelink. Otherwise, he'll probably also have flying if you have some angels in the graveyards, for example, Angelic Skirmisher or Dark of Valkyrie, and you can also steal from your opponent's graveyards too, in terms of whatever abilities they might have. So just a nice card, fits the theme of the deck still too. Celestial Force is an 8 cost, 7/7, so pretty huge. At the beginning of each upkeep, you gain 3 life. So that's it's good, I guess. Not my favorite creature, but it does definitely fit the theme of the deck. So I decided to keep it in there. So him in combination with Olero, no matter where Olero is, you're going to be gaining 5 life every turn, which is pretty significant. Chancellor of the Drows, 7 cost 6/6 flyer lifelink, and being it is a Chancellor, you can reveal it from your opening hand, and at the beginning of the first upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life, then you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So if you're in a commander match, most commander matches run 4 people, so you're 3 opponents, so that's 9 life. Everybody's going to lose 3, you're going to gain 9. Now, the danger with that is that it really makes you a very obvious first target for whenever opponent gets their first creature down, so you got to be a little bit careful about that. But otherwise, it is also a 6/6 flyer lifelink for 7 too. So there we go. Divinity of Pride is going to be a 5 cost 4/4 flyer with lifelink, and it gets +4/+4 as long as you have 25 or more life. This is one of the bombs of the creatures because it is essentially a 5/5 flyer lifelink, or I'm sorry, a 5 cost 8/8 flyer lifelink for 5, which is pretty insane. Like, this is probably one of the best creatures, just because it's so efficient, because you are almost always going to have 25 or more life, so obviously this is a good candidate for playing in Commander, and yeah, it's just so cheap, so cheap. Plus it does add to your devotion for Aetherios too, so that's just an extra bonus. Exalted Angel is essentially a 4/5 lifelink flyer angel, basically, but you can morph it too for a less of a cost, so you can do it for 3, then do it for 4, and just a nice little lifelink body. Felidar Sovereign is one of the win conditions of the deck in terms of life gain. So he's a 6 cost 4/6 vigilance lifelink. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game. And that is definitely very important. The danger with him is that he's so easily removable because black just has so much creature removal, especially in Commander when removal does tend to be run a little bit more, I think. And I mean, he's a good body. Obviously, he's there for the win condition. It's just keeping him around is a little bit harder. But he is definitely, I mean, fits the theme of the deck very well, and kind of an obvious choice as well. I think he is a little bit expensive though. Yeah, he's definitely a $10 card. So he would be one of the creatures that you might want to remove if you want to make the deck cheaper. Heliod, God of the Sun, 5/6 indestructible for 4, which is insanely efficient if you meet the devotion ability, proc thingy, whatever you want to call it. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, it isn't a creature, and then other creatures you control have vigilance, or you can put, you can also pay 4 mana to put a 2/1 white enchantment creature token onto the battlefield. So those, I mean, mono-colored gods, I don't really like their abilities overall, but I do like how he gives all of your other creatures vigilance, and again, you're going to be adding to that dedication very easily with all of the enchantments and stuff like that. So he is essentially a 5/6 indestructible for 4, which is insane as well. Hunted Lamauso is another sort of just efficient body, and I actually like this guy in Commander because he is a very cheap 4-cost 5/5 flyer. When he comes into play, put a 4/4 creature token into play under your target opponent's control. The thing I like is that you're getting a 5/5 flyer for 4, and in Commander, if you happen to have, like, because it's multiplayer, you can get allies, so you can actually put that 4/4 token, to, like, you can give that to somebody who might is focusing somebody else, so they're not going to use that creature against you. So that 4/4 token isn't necessarily going to be targeting you at all times. It can be used by your opponents to actually target another opponent too. Dreth Leonine Titan, 6-cost 4/7. Whenever it attacks or blocks, it gets +7/+7. So I'm pretty sure it just has Bushido 7. I think that's the ability. And then you can pay 1, and it will gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. You can obviously pay multiple instances of those to get protections from, like, all colors. So he's, like, he's one of the best creatures in white, period. He's just so amazing. So I wanted to include him as another example of just a good stuff creature. Pontiff of Blight fits the theme of the deck. 6-cost 2/7 with Extort, and then other creatures you control have Extort. So whenever you cast a spell, you can then proc multiple instances of Extort. And if you're playing in a 4-player game, each instant of Extort is going to net you 3 life, and each of your opponents is going to lose 1 life. So I'm not really a fan of the Extort ability, but the card fits so well with the theme of the deck that I felt that I almost had to include it. Purity, 6-cost 6/6 flyer. If a spell or ability would deal damage to you, prevent that damage, you gain life equal to the damage prevented this way. 1 second. When it is put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into its owner's library. Okay, so this is a card that fits the theme of the deck. It deflects some of the aggro that you might be taking via spell damage, because I guess it's mostly useful if you're playing against some sort of red type of burn, but it prevents your opponents from focusing you. Again, you need that little bit of defense, and it is a nice 6/6 flyer for 6, which is decently efficient. Rock's Faithmender is insane. 4-cost 1/5 lifelink. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. That is lifelink, any sort of thing that gives you life. So, for example, Aldero is going to give you 4 life per turn, but where he's really, he synergizes with a lot of the massive lifelink, or life gain abilities/cards that are in the deck. So I'll bring him up later when I'm talking about some of these spells that are in this deck. Sarah Avatar, 7-cost. Its power and toughness are each equal to your life total. So definitely, like, definite staple of this deck, because you're going to have a massive life total. Obviously, Sarah Avatar is going to be massive as well, and if it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into its owner's library. So 2 cards also that prevent against mill if you happen to be going against a mill deck. Soul of Theros, 6-cost 6/6 with Vigilance, and you can pay 6. Creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain first strike and lifelink until end of turn. The lifelink is obviously nice because you're going to be gaining life, but an extra utility from him is that while the ability is, it is expensive, like 6 mana, that's a lot. But the first strike is also nice, so that you can keep your creatures around if they happen to be going into combat where they're, like, evenly matched, basically. So anyway, he's just a good card for the deck. Soul Flare, 6-cost 4/4 with Delve, and you can essentially, like, okay, so if a creature card with flying was exiled with his Delve ability, Soul Flare has flying. The same is true for all other abilities. So again, you're probably going to be exiling a creature card with lifelink if you're going to be casting this with Delve. So it's essentially a 4/4 lifelink for less than 6 mana because you're using that Delve ability. So that's very nice. Sun Titan, here for good stuff. Just a nice creature overall. 6-cost 6/6 Vigilance. When he enters the battlefield or attacks, he may return target a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That also includes lands. So not many cards are a 3-cost or less, which is why he's mostly just there to be a nice 6/6 Vigilance body. But otherwise, if you happen to have land in your graveyard, that's also nice too, to just get mana back from your graveyard. Transcendent Master, 3-cost with a level up. Now, In the match that I played actually a couple days ago, I actually happened to get Transcendent Master from turn 3 to the end of the game because you can pay essentially 12 colorless mana to get him up to level 12, and he is a 9/9 lifelink with Indestructible. That makes him very hard to remove, very very hard to remove, and that is going to be essentially 9 life that you're going to be gaining every turn through every combat. Especially if you have something like Heliod still on the field where you give him vigilance, then he can attack, gain you 9 life, and then he can then block on your opponent's turns and heal you for 9 as well. Again, there. So next one, Victory's Herald. 6 cost, 4/4 with flying, and when it attacks, attacking creatures gain flying and lifelink until end of turn. The flying is nice because if an opponent doesn't have any defense against flyers, it's going to be they're going to be taking a lot of damage, and the lifelink is obviously going to net you a lot of life. Wall of Reverence, 4 cost, Defender Flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may gain life equal to the power of target creature you control. So this is essentially, best case scenario, you have, actually average case scenario, you have, like a 4/4, again, like a 4/5, Cairn Wander, 4/4. Most of these are going to net you basically 4 health per turn. So that in combination with Olero, you're going to be getting 6 life per turn, which is pretty good. Windbrisk Raptor, 7 cost, 5/7 flyer. Attacking creatures you control have lifelink. Again, just more life gain. Wingmake Rock is, I believe he's actually another expensive card. $6, whatever. So he is kind of a staple of standard right now, actually. So 5 cost, 3/4 flying with raid. And if you attack with a creature this turn, put a 3/4 token flyer on a battlefield. And the reason why I included him was because of his last ability. He just kind of fits the theme of the deck a little bit more. Whenever he attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking creature. So him with his raid ability, you're going to be gaining 2 life when you send him into combat. Not the best being, I mean, it's not like a token deck, so you're not going to be gaining a bunch of life off of tokens, but I guess just a nice ability. Otherwise, he's pretty efficient because if you activate his raid ability, you're going to get essentially a 6/8 for 5, which is pretty good if you combine the power and toughness of both things that you're going to be getting. And then finally, we have the last bomb of the deck, Wormcoil Engine. I think everybody knows what this does. 6 cost, 6/6, Death Touch, Lifelink. When it dies, put a 3/3, essentially 2 3/3s with one with Death Touch, one with Lifelink on the field. So obviously fits the theme of the deck, and it is pretty expensive as well. $12 card, so that would be another one that you would want to remove if you're getting this deck in physical form. Alright, so I'm going to move on with probably I'll start with the actual spells of the deck. Actually, we'll just go with artifacts. So some of the defense, there are 3 enchantments or 2 enchantments, 1 artifact, including Crawl Space, that help a little bit with defense in the deck. And you're going to want to run Crawl Space because it is very good defense against tokens, because your opponents are probably going to be focusing you if they know that you're throning. So Crawl Space is an obvious choice for that reason. And in addition, Ghostly Prison I included because, again, defense against tokens. Otherwise, if your opponent is going to spend a bunch of mana to cast a bunch of creatures or spells or whatever, they then can't pay this cost, the 2 colorless, to actually attack you. So a little bit more defense there. And then finally, the other defensive enchantment is Sphere of Safety. Creatures can attack you or planeswalker you control unless their controller pays X, where X is the number of enchantments you control. Again, we have 17 enchantments, so there's a good chance you're going to have at least 1 or 2 enchantments on the board when you have this. So minimum, I would say 2 colorless, 3 colorless for this enchantment. So if you combine that with something like Ghostly Prison, then, your opponent's going to have to start paying 3, 4, 5 mana for each creature they're attacking you with. So a little bit of extra defense there. That's always nice. Soul Ring, your obvious Soul Ring, add 2 colors to your mana pool. Whip of Erebos would be, I guess it's a $3 card, okay. So Whip of Erebos, creatures you control have lifelink, very basic, for if it's the theme of the deck, all that stuff. And the actual whipping ability is pretty good as well. So you can pay 4 black, tap it, return target creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, and it'll be exiled at the end of the turn. If it would leave battlefield, exile it and activate it only when you can catch sorcery. So basically, you can whip back a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, swing with it once, and then it's gone. But it is good to get your creatures back for a turn if they have lifelink or whatever. I mean, especially if they have lifelink, because they will have lifelink if your whip is out. So they net you extra health and just are more efficient in that regard too. Okay, so the instance, Seek is going to be, it's sideways, whatever, but it is a 2-cost. Essentially what it is search target opponent's library for a card, exile that card, and you gain life equal to that card's converted mana cost. Now in Commander, this is even better because I would say most decks are going to run with about an 8 or 9 max mana cost. So essentially what you're doing is if you pick their card with the highest mana cost, not only do they not get to cast that card, which is probably their most powerful card in the deck, but also you just straight gain, 8 to 9 life for 2 mana, which is very efficient as well. Or if you wanted to search your opponent's library, not only do you see like what your opponent has if you don't know their deck, but also you can get rid of a particularly annoying card or a card that you know that you can't deal with. For example, if they have a bomb, such as like a Wormcoil Engine or something like that, you can go ahead and exile that, and it's completely gone. You won't have to deal with it, which is pretty nice. Reverse damage, 3 cost. The next time a sorcery of choice would deal damage to you, prevent that damage, you gain that much life. So this is definitely good against something like Burn or even somebody with a supermassive creature. For example, if you've got green tramplers focusing you, then this guy is going to be your go-to to basically, it'll provide a little bit of defense for you for 1 turn, and you're going to gain that much life. So if you're going to take, 10 damage from a trampler, green body, whatever, you can prevent that, gain 10, but my complaint with this is that even though it will prevent that damage, you'll gain that much life, which is good. If it's in creature form, if you're taking that damage in creature form, you're going to have to get rid of that damage at some point in time. So maybe running a removal spell might be better than something like this card to actually kill that massive creature that might be focusing you. But I figured that this fit the theme of the deck again, so it was just a good choice, I guess. Otherwise, you've got basic removal, exile target non-white attacking creature, you gain life equal to its toughness. Beacon of Immortality. This is an absolute bomb if it doesn't get countered. If you can pull this off on your own life total, you're going to be so set. Double target player's life total, shuffle it into its owner's library. So you're probably going to have, average maybe 100 life by the time you can cast like a 6-cost like this, or maybe if it's on like turn 9 or turn 10 or something like that, just because of how much life gain is in the deck. So if you can double that, I mean, if you can even reach up to in the 200s, which I was able to do a couple days ago, and then you double that, you're now at 400 health. But I would keep in mind, though, that the downside to all of this life gain overall is combo. You are very vulnerable to combo, stuff that is just infinite, that will not scale even with your life total. That'll just go on infinitely and deal damage or whatever. But otherwise, super good card. Yeah. Okay, so sorceries, we'll just go from bottom to top. Righteous Fury, 6 cost, destroy all tapped creatures. You gain 2 life for each creature destroyed this way. So, again, in Commander, if everybody's attacking with their creatures right away, you can possibly destroy all of their creatures, and if you do, you gain 2 life. So, extra life gain theme. Reverse the Sands is an 8 cost. Huge card, 8 cost. Redistribute any number of players' life totals. Now, this would be if you are if you were throning and you were focused down to, let's say, like 10 health, because people just really don't like you for going that high with your life gain. This card is going to then net you like the highest player's life, obviously, because you're going to want to take that player's life, and you can then screw over multiple opponents or a particular opponent to have like your low life total again. Otherwise, even if you're at high life, like a high life total, you can still use this to essentially like focus a specific player, maybe the weakest guy on the board, who doesn't have any creatures to defend himself, you can give him the lowest life total and then just finish him off with a quick creature swing that way. So incredibly good card. It's an 8 cost, super expensive, but very good nonetheless. Mass Calcify is definitely a good white card. No matter what deck you run it in. 7 cost, destroy all non-white creatures. That's definitely good. Here's Remembered is a 9 cost. You gain 20 life, and you can suspend it for 10 for 1. So essentially, you wait 10 turns, and then after the 10th turn, you will just gain 20 life, and you can cast it for free. So that's good, but you always keep remembering to tick off those upkeep counters. Feud Killer's Verdict is a very efficient spell. 6 cost, you gain 10 life, then if you have more life than an opponent, put a 5/5 token onto the battlefield. That will happen almost all the time. You'll almost always have more life than an opponent, and I mean, just gaining 10 life like that is pretty good as well. Exsanguinate, this is one of the best spells, I would say, in the deck. X black black, each opponent loses X life, so, like, every opponent, you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So, best case scenario, you have 10 mana available. You cast this for 10 mana, X is 8. Each opponent loses 8 life. So not only are you doing that damage, but you then gain 24 life. And that is insane. That's crazy. Death Grasp, X white black. It deals the card will deal X damage to target creature or player. You gain X life. So again, a little bit of extra removal, and with the life gain touch to it added. Okay, so then enchantments. So we have Angelic Chorus. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. Now, in the game that I played a couple days ago, I actually played this card, and then I was able to play a Serra Avatar while I had, something like 100 life. So that was how I was able to actually get up to the 200 life totals, was because Serra Avatar comes into play as a let's say 100, well, this enchantment procs, and you are all of a sudden at 200 life, because you essentially just doubled your life total. And then Serra Avatar is then even more buffed, or whatever you want to call it. So that's just ridiculous. Blind Obedience. Artifacts and creatures your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. So this is just a little bit, just slow down your opponents, a little bit of defense, not very strong defense, but it's kind of nice regardless if all of your creatures your opponent's control enter tapped. And then you have the extra extort ability for if you want to extort. Again, I'm not really a fan of the extort ability, but it's there nonetheless. And all of this for only 2 mana, so that's definitely really good. Bloodchief Ascension, just a 1 black, 1 cost enchantment at the beginning of each end step, and if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on the card. Whenever a card is put into opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if the card has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, you gain 2 life. So what this means is that this is definitely good. Obviously, in the early game, when you only have something like 1 mana available to you, you play this right away, so you can get those 3 quest counters on there right away. And essentially, this works well in something like a board wipe. So if multiple creatures die all at once, let's say somebody's running a token deck over there, and they have 20 1/1 soldiers, somebody board wipes because they don't want to have to deal with 20 1/1 soldiers, and well, those would be tokens. So, okay, so I guess it doesn't really work well against tokens because they have to be put into opponent's graveyard. But even if a creature is just removed, creatures die all the time. So you're going to be gaining life that way, and also having opponents lose life that way. And you can also focus a player. Oh, actually, it is just whenever a card is put into a graveyard, it's that same player. So really, it's just whoever's losing the most creatures is going to lose the most life, and as always, you're going to gain that life. Boon Reflection, 5 cost enchantment. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. So, this is insane. This in combination with Rock's Faithmender, again, you're doubling the life that you gain is insane. Let's say, you have Angelic Chorus out, and you happen to have, you pull that combo off where you play Serra Avatar, you're going to gain, again, let's say you have 100 life, you play that Serra Avatar with Angelic Chorus out, and what were we just on? And Boon Reflection, you're going to gain, 200 life just for playing a Serra Avatar. So, the value speaks for itself, really, in that type of card. Celestial Convergence. I believe I actually took this card out of the deck, so I'm actually going to skip over this. Celestial Mantle is a 6-cost enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +3/+3, and whenever the enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, double its controller's life total. That's an amazing, amazing ability. And the extra buff is nice as well. Cradle of Vitality, 4 costs. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 2. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on target creature for each 1 life you gain. So, again, this combos with something like a Olero. You're paying 2. You're gaining 2 life every turn, regardless of where he's at. So, whenever you gain life, even just a minimum of 2 life, you're going to pay 2 mana, and you get 2 1/1 counters on that creature because you gain 2 life. Or let's say you pull off some amazing combo. Let's say, again, just use the example of Angelic Chorus. You play a Sarah Avatar with 100 life. You're just going to gain 100 life. Well, you paid 2 more mana, and then all of a sudden you have another, you just put 100 1/1 counters on target creature. So that's amazing as well. Exquisite Blood, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So again, it fits the theme of the deck. Now, this can combo with Sanguine Bond, which is also here, 5 cost. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life, which I think is actually better than Exquisite Blood by far, because you're just going to be gaining so much life. Minimum of 2 every turn, again, with Olero. Ghostly Prism, we went over that. Noble Purpose, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage, you gain that much life. So it's essentially another card that will give all of your creatures lifelink, but it won't actually give them lifelink. It'll just say, whenever a creature you control deals damage, you heal for that much. Polluted Bonds, 5 cost. Whenever land comes into play under an opponent's control, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. The value kind of speaks for itself here. In Commander, people are going to be playing a lot of lands, and it's going to be, you're going to be proccing this enchantment a lot. So, free life gain for you, essentially. Proper Burial, 4 costs. Whenever a creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Just a really good card, again, because even if you get all of the use that you can out of your lifelink creature, well, once it goes into the graveyard, you can then heal for that amount, that creature's toughness. So, good again. Sanguine Bond, already went over. Sphere of Safety already went over. Sunbond is a 4-cost enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever you gain life, put that many 1/1 counters on this creature. So essentially, I believe it's essentially Cradle of Vitality, but you don't have to pay the 2 mana. So again, you're going to be gaining 2 life every turn minimum. So that enchanted creature is going to have 2 1/1 counters on it every turn minimum again. And if you put this on a lifelink creature, then it actually grows exponentially, because you can deal 4 damage, then it will get 4 counters because you just gained 4 life, and then you swing again for the next turn, and it swings for 8, and you're going to gain 8 life, so you put 8 1/1 counters on it, and the creature just grows exponentially from there, so that's super good. Test of Endurance is the second win condition of this deck. 4 cost at the beginning of your upkeep. If you have 50 or more life, you win the game. Now, it is a win condition, and unlike Felidar Sovereign, it is an enchantment, which is a little bit harder to remove. In Commander, you might find actually a little bit more enchantment removal than just regular 60-card formats. But if nobody happens to have any sort of enchantment removal, you are pretty much golden on this, because I did manage to play Test of Endurance when I was playing this with 4 other friends for a 5-player match, and nobody was able to actually get me below 50 health, because I had 200 health, and at that point you can take as much damage as you want, really, because you've got 150 life that you can give up for free. So this is definitely a good card, good win condition for the deck. And then finally we have the classic C14 True Conviction. 6 cost. Creatures you control have double strike and lifelink. So obviously they're going to be doing a lot of damage, gaining you that much life, which is good as well. Okay, so that was pretty much the deck. It's a little bit, it's a good deck in a 1v1. I think you could definitely win consistently in a 1v1 a lot, just simply because you aren't your opponent is going to be focusing you, because it's a 1v1. That's kind of obvious, but you will have a little bit more trouble just trying to hold the throne, I think, if you play with multiple people. So it really depends on who you're playing with as well, and how hard they can focus you. Otherwise, the deck is pretty good. It's a lot of fun for sure to just keep adding your life total. You know, I keep track of my life total on my phone. You just keep pressing that plus button to just add your life total. It's an absolute blast. You got a nice sexy curve here, and again, $170, but you can take out some of the like $10 cards such as Wormcoil Engine, Archangel of Thune. I mean, those two alone I think would take you down about $26 for the deck. So that was pretty much my life gain Orzhov deck. Technically, it's a white, blue, black, but the only card in the deck that actually has a blue mana symbol is your commander, which you won't even need to play just because he's always netting you that much life every turn from the command zone. So that was the deck, you guys. Thank you all for watching. As always, if you could leave a rating on the video, then please do so. Feel free to leave a comment just describing what you think about the deck and if you think it's good. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you later.